Greetings and welcome to this whole new Trapcode TAO tutorial. Today we're going to explore one of many possible ways to create a simple, seamlessly looping background with simple geometric shapes created with the default auto-generated path. We're going to recreate this nice modern Art-Deco style background, and doing so we'll learn how to have this type of perspective. In fact, almost none at all, because we'll learn about how to set up an orthographic camera scene. We're also going to limit ourselves to using only the automatically generated path instead of using a bunch of lights with several keyframes to create path like we usually do, because sometimes it's fun to see what we can figure out focusing on strictly one array of possibilities over particular basic idea, so it becomes more effective when we later iterate on it and making it evolve into several variations without everything becoming a mess or something that is very disorganized, and a very effective way to figure out stuff in general. So let's create a new project and let's start with this. So we're gonna create a new solid, and let's make a square one, 1080 by 1080, duration of 1200 frames. Doesn't really matter. We're going to create a new solid, and let's make it black for no particular reason, and let's call it TAO, because that's where we're going to apply our TAO effect. So let's get it right here, and so let's try to keep this simple and everything. So first of all, we're gonna use the auto-generated path, so we're gonna keep it like this, but let's reduce the amount of segments. So let's make a kind of a square shape. So we're gonna make it 4 segments, and let's also make it 4 sides, so it's like some kind of a stroke square. And this is fun because we can then rotate it nicely like that. So next, let's change the size of this so it's more like some kind of a tower. So let's change the size Y value. But first, this is kind of the chamfer. So if we uncheck that, it'll remove this kind of beveling that we have on our edges. And also maybe we want to make this thing wider. So let's change the size X. So let's make this 200, and it's totally arbitrary. You can put any value you want. And then we're gonna kind of create a camera. So let's hit Command Control Alt Shift C, and let's make it 50 millimeter to start with that. And we're gonna attach that to a null. We're gonna call it dolly. So let's make this null 3D, and let's use the pick whip to connect our camera to that. And let's rotate not our camera but our dolly. So let's rotate on X and 35 degrees, and let's also pick up our camera here, and using I'm hitting C here to cycle between different actions for the camera here, and then I'm gonna hold shift to make sure that I keep it in a straight direction. And also we can pull back a little with the camera pan Z tool like that. So I just want to make sure that we keep it all centered here, and that we have our nice and there I just offset it by mistake. So let's keep it like that. And now what we're gonna try on doing is have some kind of an no perspective at all. Right now we have like a horizon point. What we want to do is what we have now is a perspective view. Like this is what we're looking at. If we want to get something like this, where the lines have no vanishing point, it means that they were gone forever without ever meeting each other in the distance. staying parallel to each other, contrary to this, where if you were to extend those lines here, then they would at some point meet in the horizon to create the illusion of perspective. So to get it like that, it's almost like what we have from the orthographic views from our front, left or top camera, but we can't view TAO from those. It's not possible to. We have to view it from our active camera. So let's look at the options from our camera. So we can get into those by going in the camera settings here, or by hitting Control Shift Y with this layer selected here. And this is our angle of view here. So if I pull this back, if this were to be the 0, that would mean that we have a 0 angle of view. We have no angle of view, meaning no perspective. So 0 is a bit drastic. Let's start with 2, because we're already, as we do that, we can see that we're getting pretty close. So that what we'll have to do now is once again pull back, but what will happen now is that it will kind of vanish in the distance here. So let's pick up our TAO once again and get in the visibility settings, and we want to make sure that now we have room for this. So what we can do is simply add a 0 in the end of that, of all those, so we can pull back more like that, and keep seeing our object as a whole. So one problem that may occur now that we have a really huge object at first is some kind of an issue on the edge. Let's shut off the ambient occlusion for the moment, because that's also going to give us some issues perhaps. So now we have kind of these kind of edges there. So if we want this to look better, let's increase the value from the near property until we get something that's smoother. So now, as you can see, we have a nice kind of an orthographic view on this. These angles are not like they will meet at one point, because remember we have this thing is like the angle of view is like 2. If we want to look at that at 0, I don't think it's gonna work. So we want to keep this as small as we can, but if it gives us issue, then we might as well figure out some way. So that's like the angle of view set to 1. So we're trying things now. Let's double those values here, so making sure that we don't go too far. And let's get our ambient occlusion back. So now it's not giving us any noticeable issues, but it's just like we have almost no segments, so we have not really something to create any kind of a shadow. So ambient occlusion might not be what we use here to get our shadow details here. We're gonna see what our other options are. So let's have this shape repeated. So first thing we'll do is perhaps make even taller, and let's shut off, and let's perhaps have our own light setting, so we can have best lighting. So let's make an ambient light. Let's make it white, intensity 100%, light type ambient. We're gonna lose all shadow and all, and let's create a TAO Lumi light that we're gonna use as a point light for our general light direction. And let's get in here, and in the material setting, let's decrease our ambient lighting down to something that's not gonna make it all dark, but so that we can still see it. And now let's pick up our Lumi, and let's bring it. Let's see, we're at 35 degrees there. So let's keep that at 0. instead of rotating our dolly here, or maybe we can still do that, to an angle of 35, and then we have our light over there. And let's once again get down. And we can still change the aspect here of our shape if we want to try to make it smaller or taller. And let's repeat it. So open up the repeater section here, and for the first repeater, let's increase that. So we're gonna repeat it for approximately the width of it, but let's leave a little space here. And let's see if we can get some better lighting by temporarily using a diffusion map. So let's get in the built-in and let's see what we get from the bus garage. And perhaps no reflection, but let's try to keep it like that. And we might get some issues here. Is that because of the, it's not the ambient occlusion. Sometimes when we have really low camera angles, it becomes more prone to issues like that, but we want to keep our angles straight. Anyway, let's repeat it on the second repeater to get the other axis. So now we're repeating it this way, but we want to offset that on the X as well. So let's try 600, or let's leave a little space. And if we offset it there, perhaps half of that, so that value divided by 2, and then we get it, and then we can bring them closer like that. So now we have more of a kind of something like that. Let's try the super sample. Alright. So now I've checked the ambient occlusion back on, and now let's mess around with our lights. Take this one around here maybe, and let's keep it close. Maybe bring it over there and hit double A, and we can increase the radius. And one thing that I don't think that we've done yet is why we're not getting that much of good lighting is activate the include TAO Lumi lights. So let's include those, and as soon as we do that, we're going to get some more light details here. So let's bring this around, and let's create another one. So TAO Lumi, and let's hit OK. So this one's right over there. Let's bring it on this side maybe. to aim at. So it's kind of fun when you keep it close to the top of these shapes, or right in the center of it. Maybe smaller radius for this one, or not this one, but this one. How to stick one here, right at the corner here. Set that to smooth. No, I don't think it's gonna solve our issue, so we might want to keep that at flat. And just look at what works best from this point of view. Might be the super sample. So first I just want to make sure that where I'm getting this color from. Oh, it's from the it's from this. So let's set it off. Now we have no image-based lighting, so we can get one more TAO Lumi in there, and let's make this one up there. Back. So let's make this one kind of more of a general light coming from the top. So right around this area here we get this nice light direction. We can perhaps increase it in size or in intensity, and we're trying to get like nice results for the internal shadowing here, like those one down here really dark. Perhaps we can duplicate this other one here that we've made and move it around here. Oops. And bring it up and back. Down there. Once again, all depending on what you're trying to get. So let's just keyframe some motion in there. So if you want to make a small loop, we might not need any a great amount of duration for that. Maybe just 30 frames is enough. So let's go to 30 frames, and we're gonna keyframe the world position. So let's get down to the world position and let's look at what we should move. So what if we move this goes up and down, and let's make it from the right to the left. So we're gonna keyframe the world position property here. So let's hit on the stopwatch here. It's gonna create a keyframe on the frame 30. We can hit U to reveal it, and let's hit Home to get back, and let's create another one. So now we're gonna, like, there's some math involved here. I'm not really sure of the width of our thing here, so I'm gonna just take a picture here and offset that, and now I'm able to hit F8, and like I see that it's approximately over here, so I just need to offset it until we get to the next one, and and if we have no next one, it's just a matter of adding more here. So let's try on the other one. Let's make 3, so we have more. Let's make sure we have enough, so let's make it 4, and let's make it 8 over here. So now I'm hitting F8. I'm not totally the right spot. Just need to move it a little bit more. And now I've gone a little bit too far. So now I can see that it's almost the same, so the number might be 1174 or the other way around, so let's put a 6 there, and that's seems quite about the same spot here. So now in between those keyframes it'll move like that, and we can just come to frame 29, and if we look at that, it should automatically loop like that, and we get some cool lighting from our lights that we've set there. And since everything goes through, we might not want to. So Z is up and down, and just might want to keep it right here on top of the rim there. Let's look at our ambient occlusion. So it doesn't seem like we get any issues on the edges now, except from around here. So let's set that to off, and if it's set to off, we're kind of gonna have this on the outside because of the ambient occlusion. Or let's see if we can still pull this value a little bit more without losing anything on the front. So see, it's kind of fixing it a little bit, but there's no ultimate. Oh, kind of looks better now. So that's little tweaks here and there that you can right. And I don't think that it's it doesn't seem like it's exactly aligned here, so let's move around on this. No, let's move around on this. So just a little bit more space. And let's hit Control R. So let's make sure everything lines up here. So this is our middle one here. Let's get on frame 0, and let's make a guide here so we can align the one up there. Right, those need to be aligned, and those they seem to be aligned as well. And then we can add some more variation in there. So right in the repeat here. So if we if we do that, we can kind of randomize their position or their size on Y. And then let's do the same on the second repeater. So let's have it like that, and so they're not all the same height. And if we want this motion also animated, let's pick up this slide. Once again, it's still needs to go up just to make sure that it's not going through. So let's make a keyframe on frame 0 for these properties that we've changed here. So random size and size Y here, and on the second repeater that and that, and I think we can also put in this one just to test. So now that we've done that, let's hit U. We're gonna have all those here. Let's go to frame 30. So let's create a keyframe on all of those. Alright, so just before we create all those keyframes here, let's bring that to frame 75 here, and let's make sure everything is at 0 here, but segment size is at 100, like that. And we want to leave the world position offset out of all that, so let's copy only those like that, and maybe we can even ease them. So let's right click and let's get in a keyframe assistant and easy ease in for those on the left, on the right side, and keyframe assistant easy ease out for those. And let's grab all those and hit control click on them, and then we can pull those depending on if we want this thing to keep up for a longer amount of time. And why is, oh, this also needs to be 100. All right, 100, or maybe you can change it, like it's not only this combination of values that you can do. Just use your imagination and think about the several combinations of things that you can make and have it loop like that. So it's up to you to experiment with this. So let's look at that, and it's not looping. Why not? We changed their position, so we need to get this back. So this is the initial position. Let's take a picture, shift F8, and let's make sure that we're set on the right spot. Just a little bit, and at 1200, we're at 1196. I think it's 1196 is the right value, so that should loop now. Sorry for messing up. All right. And of course, don't forget to mess around with the ambient occlusion. In the end, once we've got all the other settings right, it should be easier to instantly get better results out of this. So now we're getting a little bit more shadow details in there. It's pretty nice. And we can of course, on top of all that, add a new adjustment layer, and this will be our color correction. So let's add curves on top of that, and if we want to boost the contrast of this, or not, don't want to lose or get back some of the details from those shadowy parts, depending on what you're trying to get exactly. So I hope you have fun exploring looping background animation with this nice little way of setting things up. And if you have any questions, just drop it in the comments. And oh yeah, now that we've done all that, what we can do also one other way to tweak kind of our distance shadow. It's kind of with the fog now. Let's set that to black, and let's try to find the point where we bring it in from the depth here. I don't really know how to say that, but just to bring it a touch from the bottom there, depending on, once again, depending on the result you want to get. So this can also help to get some darkness coming from the bottom, right? So you can see that if I bring those somewhat close, we can kind of simulate more of a gradient from down there, and then we might need to increase the ambient a little bit more to fetch back some of the details from those dark areas. So yeah, that's how I created this little looping background. Let's see what you can create using this kind of a technique. So as always, thank you very much for watching.